Well, what a beautiful day it was for much of the East Coast, from Maine all the way down to Georgia. And we've got another great day ahead of us for Wednesday. There's some areas of heavy rains and some thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast from Florida to Texas. We'll examine that, take a look where there's some severe weather around and it's hot in the West. All of that lies ahead on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you could support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast simply by shopping on the Amazon link that is on the chat pin to the top of the chat board, and it's on the descriptor to this video. You could look at the stuff that I have there, or you could just use the search bar and find whatever it is you're looking for, and Amazon will throw back a little bit of coin, and that always makes us a little bit happy. So check out those links. And in the meantime, wait a minute. Got to come up to us now. And there we are. I don't know, those 3 days off, Joe, those 3 days off kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. Takes me a few days to get back into the directing skills.
Yes. Sometimes when you're away for a few days, you come back and it's like, ooh. Renata, in fact, thought that today was, that tomorrow was Thursday for whatever reason.
Every time there's a Monday holiday, I have the same problem. I'm thinking today was Monday when it was Tuesday, and I've made that mistake a few times along the way. But today, I caught myself several times. It always throws me off. And the worst of it is Christmas and New Year's, particularly if it's in the middle of the week. I just lose all concept of the last couple of years, last several years during Christmas and New Year's. I just lost absolute any concept of what actual day of the week it was during that stretch.
Well, I remember when we were working News 12.
When was that?
It was a while back in the Stone Ages.
Correct.
I could remember you always used to take off between Christmas Eve and New Year's Day or whatever you had, like 8 or 10 days off.
I would always come back. I used to always come back for New Year's. I used to always take Christmas off, but I'd work New Year's. Because I couldn't stand it. And to this day, I do not like New Year's. I just don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Not for any particular reason. It's just that after we do a lot going into Christmas, so you just have, after a while, it's like, okay, let the holidays be done, and I have no interest sitting around to toast the new year. To me, it's just another day.
My wife got very upset with me in 2010 on her birthday, December 27th.
And she's never forgotten it.
Which was the day after the giant blizzard, the Bloomberg blizzard, as some refer to it, where there was like 15 or 20 inches of snow. And I had off that day, and they did not call me in. I went in on that day as a point of, it's a major storm. I have to go in. They need me. And my wife, who wanted to celebrate a nice birthday at home or whatever, no, they don't. And I ended up dressing up, getting in the car, going through all of that snow to go to work. And, it's like, they already had somebody to fill in for me. And the guy was like kind of upset about the fact that here I was.
Yeah, I really was upset about it.
Anyway.
To this day, I haven't forgiven you. I'm just kidding, folks. It wasn't me.
It was a very nice guy by the name of Daryl Green, who was my fill-in. And I came walking into the weather center. Hey, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. Shows you the kind of person I was, Joe. Even when I wasn't called in during a major weather event, I still went in. And the only problem with that was going home and facing Mrs. Rayo after that. So.
Well, I'm going to refrain from any sort of editorial comment on that and use this as an opportunity to say hello to everybody on the chat board and welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And for those of you who are lurking in the background, we love you too. Thanks for being here tonight on this Tuesday. We are on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around. And if there is, we'll let you know about it. And of course, if you like the show, hit the like button. Make sure you got your notifications on so you do not miss us. And of course, you can always follow either Joe or I are on our Facebook pages, which are easy to find, just as long as you know how to spell our names. CIOFFI for me, RAO for Mr. Rayo.
Yes.
Okay. So I got the front move through here early this morning. Uh, well, actually, it wasn't early this morning. It was maybe around, I don't know, 6 or 7 o'clock this morning. It was kind of cloudy until, maybe about 9 or 10 o'clock. And then it cleared out, blue sky, sunshine, barely got back to the mid 70s this afternoon. Dew points were, down in the 50s. Just an absolutely gorgeous day here in North Georgia. And I think I'm heading down into the 50s tonight. So I'm very happy. And
I
you
was
had a
40.
you had a lovely day too, were you?
Oh, it was a gorgeous day. Low humidity. Started out the day at 49. I'm not sure what the high was. I didn't check. It was probably no higher than somewhere in the low 70s at best. But it was beautiful, Joe. We're on our way toward another clear and comfortably cool, maybe even a downright chilly night tonight. And another beautiful day coming our way, it looks like, for tomorrow and for Thursday, too.
Yeah. Even though the flow is going to go a little bit onshore on Thursday, it's not going to. It's just the initial turn to the onshore flow. It's not going to be enough to bring in low clouds or fog. Now that might be a different story as we get into Friday, and particularly Friday night and Saturday, when it looks like, at least for part of the weekend, we're probably going to have to deal with some showery rains and maybe a rumble or two of thunder.
Maybe. And, it could have been worse because initially, a day or two ago, some of the models were suggesting a cold front latching onto an offshore storm and energizing that storm, a la possibly a nor'easter, to bring a heavier dose of precipitation. But that does not look like it's going to be the case now, thankfully.
And the tropics are still what they are, which is pretty quiet.
Moribund.
Yeah, I mean, there were there's three disturbances that they outline, and they've got them outlined in that big yellow less than 30% outlook. And by the way, um, the I was just thinking back. There was a stretch in the 70s of several years where nothing developed in the tropical Atlantic. It was all pretty much west of 60 degrees west in terms of development. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I'm more surprised by the fact that there hasn't been any kind of, closer to home development in the last several weeks or so. Maybe a little less surprised with the tropical Atlantic not doing much in the way of storm activity, but everybody's seeing, a lot of people are still getting bent out of shape over this. It's not as if this is like a new thing. There are years where you don't get the tropical Atlantic doesn't work very well.
It's just the problem with this year is that we were told that we
Right?
were
Yes, that's a big
expect
issue.
a lot of tropical activity and this is going to be a terrible year and all that. And so far, it's been anything but that.
And this is why, especially now, because the next thing, next round of questions is they've already started in a lot of places. Of course, you think after the last four winters that people would have learned not to ask the question, but of course they always ask the question, and they get upset that I really don't give an answer because I honestly don't know what it's going to be like.
It's a conundrum. There's so many people out there who are dying to know what it's going to be. And you know what? People are so hyper into what's the winter going to be like? What's the winter going to be like?
Well,
I
what,
must know. I
what,
must know.
but to what purpose?
But the thing is that when the winter is over, said and done, and behind us, more often than not, people just forget, unless there was some kind of a historic meteorological event like a 20,000-inch snowstorm or something like that. People they forget about the predictions that were made at the start of the year for the most part. They just Okay, enough with that. On to spring, and that's how they feel, So who cares?
I always, I've always come to the opinion though, with respect to even asking that question, why is it so important? The worst, the only answer I could give you is some sort of broad answer. You and I have talked about this before on this show. If you're trading, if you're an energy trader, if you're a grains trader, if you're a natural gas trader, whatever it is, okay, I can sort of understand that you'd like to have some idea because you want to make some money or you don't want to lose money, so you want to position yourself. But for the average person, what are you going to do? Are you going to sell your house? I mean, are you going to sell your house and move because the winter is going to be a certain way? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And it's like, if you know that in 2 days you're going to have a hurricane pass over your house, if you live on the Carolina coast or Florida or whatever, I mean, you're right. What are you going to do aside from, you know, evacuating the area and getting out of that area, which is at the epicenter of the storm? I mean, you can't certainly move your house. What are you going to do? You can't do anything.
Yeah, to me, it's just a way. It's really a silly question and a waste of time.
Yeah. What?
I mean, that's my never to be humble opinion.
Yeah.
And on that note, let us now go to the watches and warnings map. I tell you one thing. I know the weather's quiet and it's calm and there's no tropical systems around, but it does make it a little more difficult to stretch a show out beyond a half an hour when there isn't a whole lot happening from the standpoint of adverse weather. Not that we wish that there were adverse weather around, but it does make our lives a little easier in trying to, do a show because we have stuff to talk about. But in the eastern part of the United States, it's just about absolutely free and clear of any kind of watches and warnings, and that is pretty obvious when you got a big high building into the east. We have flood watches and some flash flood warnings up for parts of central Texas, even nosing down into South Texas and in a small portion of the Texas coast because of all this Gulf moisture around that's been around there all last week, continues to be around this week. In the west, we've got heat. We have excessive heat warnings for Arizona, for much of southern and western Arizona, as well as southern California. Heat advisories going up into northern California and up the west coast to western Washington and western Oregon and western Washington state. So if you want to know where the heat is, it's because the heat ridge is actually out in the west, and we've got troughing in the east. And by the way, I meant to bring this up last night because I don't even remember the last time we were in a situation like this, but I was just kind of checking the teleconnections. And the, this is not the right, yeah, this is the right one. So this is the Arctic oscillation, which when it's negative, it usually favors cold weather in the eastern part of the United States. There's other things that go on with it. I'm just giving you sort of this broad perspective. And of course, the Arctic Oscillation, Joe, is forecast to go almost two standard deviations negative in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. And then I looked at the Planeo, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which of course is the winter weather lover's favorite teleconnection, and that's negative, or is about to go negative by about 1 to 2 standard deviations. Well, more like one standard deviation from the mean. And then I looked at the PNA, the Pacific North America pattern index, which is if it's positive, it's ridge in the west, trough in the east. If it's negative, it's ridge in the east, trough in the west. And the PNA is positive. I cannot remember the last time these teleconnections were lined up like this. I mean, certainly teleconnections like this in the wintertime would be would have some snow love, most winter weather loving people salivating in the eastern part of the United States. But here we are in early September, and I think for the first time in a long, long time, we've got the teleconnections where you kind of want them to be. Only it's about 3 months too early.
Yeah. And do you think they're going to be where we want them to be 3 months from now? Of course
Oh
not.
no, no, no,
The-
no. Then
Anything will.
it's trough in the west, ridge in the east. Paul Roman, thanks for banging the tip jar tonight. Anything? He'd like to anything to this super moon eclipse and Ring of Fire. I read an article about it today.
If you could put on the chat board where you read about it, first of all, the so-called super moon eclipse. That's the next full moon is going to be the harvest moon. I think that's on September 17th. Yeah, some super
Shine
eclipse.
on,
About eight
harvest
percent
moon.
about 8% of the moon will be covered. It's a partial eclipse. And the ring eclipse, a ring of fire eclipse, only will be visible if you plan to go to Easter Island or Patagonia.
Well,
So,
pack my bags, Charlie. I'm on my way.
yes, exactly.
Have you been to Easter Island?
Yes, I have.
Really?
In 1986, I went to Easter Island.
Wow. There's not
But
much there anymore.
no, what I will tell you is that when I went there in 1986, the number of people that visited Easter Island each year was about 2,000.
Right.
There is not that much. Today, Easter Island is visited each year by about 100,000 people, and they have a big hotel there, the Hotel Hangaroa. So, the Chileans who own Easter Island have decided that they're going to make that a big, big, big tourist attraction. Well, heck, if 100,000 people a year, they have 6 flights a week that go to Easter Island, Joe. So
Wow.
uh, it supposedly is the most remote part of the world in the middle of the South Pacific. But thanks to our technology and thanks to the fact that, I'm sure that the Chilean government has seen money in their future by sending all these flights out to get people to go. So there are a lot of people who go to Easter Island now. When I went, hardly anybody went. 2,000 people over the course of a year's time. How many people does that translate per month? Like what? To less than 200? It was a very remote. Now, like I said, big time. It's they got a hotel there. People rummaging around the island. You know, trying to look at those big statues. So anyway,
All right. Well, back to the satellite loop, shall we? Surely. Uh, Taking a look at what's up there. Well, we've got some high clouds streaming into parts of the Ohio Valley. The Northeast is clear. The Mid-Atlantic states are mostly clear. The Southeast is fairly clear. We've got some leftover dying thunderstorms in Florida. Those are starting to wane a bit, as is some of the thunderstorm activity in southern Alabama. You can see the moisture in the western Gulf that's pushed into Texas. It's been raining in a good portion of central Texas for a good part of the day today. Some of that moisture streaming up into Oklahoma, which is why you see the high clouds that are blowing into the Ohio Valley. A little bit of activity up in the northwest with some lightning strikes showing up there, although the west coast, the immediate west coast, up and down the west coast, is on the clear side. And as we look at the latest radar, not much going on until you get down to Florida, and it's all on the west coast of Florida that we're seeing showers and a few thunderstorms. Back up the Panhandle across the lower Gulf states, and then back into Texas. And as I said earlier, it's been raining pretty much all day in some parts of central Texas and also in some areas in coastal Texas. A few flash flood warnings up well to the north of San Antonio. Also, some rain showers around in the Dallas Fort Worth area and in southeast Oklahoma. And then we've got showers and a couple of thunderstorms in parts of central Montana to Wyoming and Utah. The Storm Prediction Center, that's where the marginal risk is today. Wyoming, southern half of Montana, down into Utah. And for tomorrow, we have marginal risk from southern Montana and Wyoming to northern Colorado, northeastward through the Dakotas into Minnesota and western Wisconsin. But the tornado risk there is 2% or less. And nothing on day three. No severe weather being forecast, and we still don't have any thunderstorms to worry about from Maine down through the southern Appalachians. Although, for whatever reason on Wednesday, maybe that has to do with what's offshore, they Wednesday into Thursday, SPC does have general thunderstorms from southern Delmarva down to South Carolina, Georgia, to Florida, which you sort of understand. But um, I don't think we're going to really have any. We obviously aren't going to have any severe weather issues in much of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, and probably even into the Southeast for the rest of the work week.
Yeah, the best chance of getting wet looks like it'll be sometime late Saturday into Saturday night and possibly early Sunday. We may be able to salvage the latter part of Sunday with dry weather. They would figure that in a perfect weather pattern such as this, that things would have to go sour just in time for the weekend. But on the other hand, those of you who have this week off, you hit pay dirt. It's probably going to be the nicest week of weather that we have seen all summer long, even though summer is thought to be over with after Labor Day. Officially, still summer around here until the 22nd of September.
WPC not really doing a whole lot with the next weather system for Saturday into early Sunday, about a half to three quarters of an inch. Still showing some hefty precip amounts, though, up in eastern Ontario and in the western parts of southern Quebec, where we're looking at 2 to 3 inches plus of liquid for the next 7 days. Also, a stripe that goes from coastal South Carolina, southern Georgia, the lower Gulf states, and the Texas Gulf Coast, where we're looking at 5 inches or more in that sort of narrow area, because then all the big numbers are out in the Gulf of Mexico and saw what the satellite looked like. So it's not a huge surprise there. But the northern edge of that rain gets almost to me, the half-inch line gets to just to the south of me here in North Georgia, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, and then up into much of northern South Carolina, and then into eastern North Carolina. Everywhere else, I mean, it's really, minimal precip, which is actually fairly typical for September. So, you're talking about a quarter of an inch or even a tenth of an inch or less west of the Mississippi, and even along the northwest coast. It's just light precip there. So, the map looks like September out there.
And it hasn't been this way at the end of summer, early fall for quite some time. It's been a while since we've actually had a pattern that looks like a transition from summer to fall. And let me tell you again, as I've said over and over, this summer, I mean, a very humid summer, not necessarily hot. We did have a few hot days up to about 94, 95, but humidity was seemingly unending. So how wonderful it is to have this blanket of low dew points cover much of the eastern part of the United States, and it looks like more to come, Joe. After maybe a little bit of a interlude over the weekend, it looks like next week another round of unusually low dew point temperatures to deal with. So it's going to be nice for a while.
August, by the way, in in New York City at least, was actually below average by a little over 1 degree for the month. August turned out to not be that bad. A few hot days at the beginning and a few hot days at the end, and there were a couple of stretches of low humidity and even cool temperatures. We had those nights in the 50s in the urban areas, which hadn't happened in quite a while, and even cooler temperatures inland. So I mean, August wasn't too bad, but July definitely was awful.
And it was the first month you mentioned about how it was cooler. Is August 2024 was the first month of 2024, and that includes January, February, March, April, the first month to be cooler than average, despite starting out with high temperatures in the 90s on 5 of the first days of the month. August, as Joe just mentioned, 2024 was a cooler than normal month, the first month since November of 2023 with a cooler than average monthly temperature, 1 degree below average. And this was also the first August since 2013 to have a low temperature chillier than 60 degrees. And the low of 57 on August 21st was the chilliest August reading since 2007. Is this a sign of things to come as we move toward fall and winter? It was also the first August since 2008 with two lows in the 50s.
I'm just looking at the the upper air for the next couple of weeks is the way the GFS paints it anyway. So, you have the trough that's over the east pulling out over the next couple of days, only to be replaced by another even deeper trough here over the weekend. You can see that low drops into the northern Great Lakes and cuts off and then eventually lifts out into southeastern Canada. But as it moves eastward, it is going to bring another shot of cooler air for the first part of next week, and then that lifts out, and you still have troughing in the east in some semblance, particularly down in the middle and South Atlantic states, some kind of upper low that gets left behind there under the flow. But on the whole, this is, we don't see it. We're not seeing any big ridges trying to build in the eastern part of the United States. We do have a big ridge out in the west that's going to last for at least a few days before it sort of gets kind of shifts into Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. It's not particularly strong because there's troughing that drops down off the west coast uh, later on next week. So they're going to have a stretch of hot weather there, but it's not going to last more than I would say a handful of days before you get to see at least a little bit of relief from that standpoint. And with respect to the tropics, we'll come back to the local surface in a moment, but looking at the latest runs of both, the models are picking up on a lot of weak disturbances that are out there in the tropical Atlantic, but none of them, the models really don't do very much with them. They actually develop something uh, near the Cabo Verde Islands, which eventually kind of just takes it up to the north out in the Atlantic. You see it there on this is the 18Z run. Actually, does have some kind of a hurricane uh, a week from Sunday, north of the leewards and southeast of Bermuda, of course. But we'll see. We've been taken down this road before, also trying to make something in the Southwest Gulf with an extension to the Eastern Gulf and the Southwest Atlantic, come later next week. So, I mean, there's stuff there, but the model, I'm not overly impressed by it. I can't imagine we're going to go, there's going to be some development somewhere soon, just not this week.
Rich Worthmansky on the chat board pointing out that the last time that the Atlantic had no named storm formations between August 13th and September 3rd was back in 1968.
Ah, yes. So it has happened before.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
as our friend Vincent Croce points out, wow, 57 years,
Yeah,
56, 56 years.
that's a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, So our surface high, which covers pretty much all of the east back to the Great Lakes and the middle and upper Mississippi Valley, slides out near Cape Cod. So that means Mr. Onshore Flow starts to develop. It actually is already starting to develop from Virginia down in the Carolinas, and then it's going to increase further north starting Thursday, and then really maybe have a little bit of impact in terms of perhaps bringing some clouds and maybe some overnight fog Thursday night into Friday morning. I don't know, it's just a guess on my part. But some of this Gulf moisture is going to try to move eastward. Uh, and, there's also this next weather front with that cutoff dropping down to the Great Lakes. So there's another big high. And there's a 540 thickness, Joe, 540 thickness in northern Michigan, the lower peninsula, as well as the upper peninsula, come next Saturday. So this is a it's a pretty sizable shot of cool air that's going to come into the east. Not that coldest air won't make it, but certainly it will. We'll see some cooler air, and then the question is, okay, what do we do with Saturday? Because it looks like we'll probably have some showery rains during the day Saturday into Saturday night. But if everything moves along, we could see improving weather conditions come next Sunday. And then here's a look at the map for next Monday. There's almost no precipitation going on anywhere, coast to coast, with the exception maybe of Florida and coastal Texas. Almost the whole country is dry and quiet.
Well, that's Alan Casper used to say, when it's boring for me, it's great for all of you watching. And I guess that's the story this week. It's a relatively boring weather pattern with not really all that much to write home about, but it's a pattern that I'm sure a lot of people are enjoying because there's no need to worry about, you know, getting ready for floods or exceedingly hot weather, at least locally here in our neck of the woods. It's hot elsewhere out west, and the so-called heat dome, still holding firm. But here in the Northeast, we're just enjoying again probably the nicest weather in the whole country, Joe.
All right, let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Surely.
All right, we're going to start with Atlanta today. We're doing the average high temperatures in September.
In Atlanta, the average high temperature in Atlanta in September. All right. Well, how about 85?
Oh, that's so close. Alan Rupa gets it right off the back. It's bat, and so does Anthony. 84, Joe. 84. You missed it by one.
Wow.
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Baltimore, I will say 78.
Very close for Baltimore. 78 is very close. Craig Carlberg gets it though at 80, and so does Rich Rothmansky and Mike Waterhouse and Maggie P. And if I keep going, to probably somebody else, Michael McGuire. So 80 for Baltimore. Buffalo.
Buffalo, I will say 76.
A little too high. A little too high. Craig Carlberg already got it. They get 72. 72 for Buffalo.
I didn't think
A
it'd be that.
lot of folks are getting this stuff early. They must be fast Googlers. Just kidding. On your honor, folks, that you're not Googling this stuff. Chicago.
Chicago. All right. Well, I'm going to say for Chicago, 76.
Oh, another one where you missed it by so little. So little. And Northern Grace gets that one at 77.
Wow.
77 for Chicago. And Dallas Fort Worth.
Oh,
Dallas.
Dallas Fort Worth, I would say 88.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close. So is 91 from Craig Carlberg and Coin Pig. Very close with 91. And Patrick Darcy with 90. And William Uber with 90. They get it. You did very well tonight.
Oh,
And now,
thank you.
and now the bonus city, which ruins my life, Caribou, Maine.
Oh,
I
God.
say that only because I always have a tough time figuring out Caribou, Maine.
I'm going to say for Caribou, I'll say 60, 64.
Again, very close. Craig Carlberg is even closer at 65. Um, so that means,
W.
and Rich Rothmansky and Carol DeCara are close in the other direction at 67. And Mike Waterhouse and William Uber and Vincent Croce and Chuck Cardillo and Frank R. and Jason Fox, 66.
60.
66 degrees, yes. WNBC,
You see, yes.
yes. All right, so I mean, there really isn't too much else happening. I have no gossip. I have no gossip that I can share publicly, but I will share with you privately because a memory was triggered yesterday.
Well,
Okay, and I will share it with you, Joe, uh, because I know you won't tell a soul, and you'll make everybody promise to keep it a secret.
right.
So anyway, on that note, again, thank you for
Okay.
those of you who are
Oh,
here tonight. And
who told you
you,
this piece of news? The poison?
oh no, I'll tell you. I'll just I'll tell you off screen. Um, and thank you for those of you who are with us tonight. Don't forget if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If you shop on Amazon, just use our Amazon influencer link, which is at the top of the chat board, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. You don't have to buy what's on my Amazon influencer page. You want to call me an influencer? You just go and use the search bar, look for whatever it is you're looking for, and Amazon will throw back some of their coin, not your coin.
Right.
And on that note, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Night, night.
Good night, folks.